today, a U.S. State Department official has defended the Trump administration's use of emergency powers to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, despite concerns over civilian deaths in Yemen. Our Clarke Cooper was grilled by senators on the export of $8 billion worth of precision-guided missiles weapons, which have repeatedly been used on schools and hospitals. And he's come up with some surprising justifications, as Caleb Maupin reports.
Well, it was a heated exchange on Capitol Hill. It was a hearing of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and we saw this State Department official being grilled over the fact that the Trump administration pressed ahead with arms sales to Saudi Arabia despite the objections of both houses of the U.S. Congress. Now, the individual in question from the U.S. State Department was actually the Assistant Secretary of State, R. Clarke Cooper. He's the Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. And he actually said that selling these weapons fits into a strategy of the United States for promoting human rights. This is what he said.
Our policy is not just limited to arms transfers. It is an expression, a manifestation of what else we export. Open society, human rights, that is a part of our policy. We do export the best of America with our arms transfer policy.
Now, it has been overwhelmingly U.S.-made weapons sold to Saudi Arabia by the United States that have been used by Saudi Arabia in its attack on Yemen, which is ongoing and has killed roughly 70,000 people. And it's important to note that in 2018, on average, roughly 100 civilians died every single week. Now, when Cooper was pressed further, he did admit that this has a lot to do with the bottom line and business. This is a follow-up after he was pressed.
We do not suspend our security relationship with a partner that carries so much weight for our interests and our equities in the region.
You're saying that the U.S. Convention arms transfer policy can be sacrificed if we have an important relationship with a country?
No, it should not be sacrificed.
That's what you're doing, because you're transferring weapons after you have knowledge that they violated international norms.
Now, on May 24th, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo invoked an exemption under the Emergency Arms Control Act that basically pushed forward $8.1 billion in arms sales to Saudi Arabia, as well as Jordan and the United Arab Emirates. In response, the Senate voted to block the deal, with a bipartisan group, both Democrats and Republicans, objecting, most especially in the aftermath of the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey. The extrajudicial execution, he walked in to the Saudi embassy in Turkey and never walked out again. In the aftermath of that, there has been widespread questioning of the continued U.S. Financial and military relationship with Saudi Arabia. And it seems that this disagreement that we saw before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee is the latest public episode of this strong disagreement about U.S. policy in the Middle East and the continued U.S. support for Saudi Arabia.
Well, just some reaction to this story. Anti-war activist Medea Benjamin told us the State Department's defense of arms sales to the Saudis lacks credibility.
It was quite comical today to hear the representative from the State Department say that the United States is exporting open society and democracy by selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. I don't think anybody, any of the senators who are listening could believe that, or any of the people in the audience, but it is really quite tragic that the U.S. representatives gets away with saying such ridiculous things. The Trump administration is going around Congress to sell these weapons by calling it a national emergency. And as the senators were asking, what is this emergency? And it's a very dangerous slope when the administration can go around the Congress and not even give them notification of weapons sales. There's so much money to be made. These weapons manufacturers are very powerful. They have strong lobbies in Washington, D.C. And the other is the American people don't know very much about this because it's not on our news media. And so they don't care very much about it.